After 60, your body doesn't break down because you're getting older. It breaks down because you stopped moving in the ways that matter. And here's what almost nobody tells you: the movements that keep Japanese seniors walking without assistance into their 90s. Gardening at 85, climbing stairs without rail gripping at 72, they're not complicated yoga poses or gym routines. They're 5 simple patterns you can do in your living room, most of them taking less than 3 minutes. No equipment, no flexibility required. And the science behind why they work is so clear that researchers studying longevity hotspots keep coming back to the same conclusion. It's not about intensity, it's about intention and daily repetition of movements that wake up the systems Western habits let fall asleep. In Japan, particularly in regions where people routinely live past 90 with independence intact, these movements aren't called exercise. They're woven into morning routines the way brushing your teeth is woven into yours. And the results show up not in how much weight someone lifts, but in whether they can get off the floor without using their hands at 78, whether they can stand on one leg to put on a shoe at 81, whether their spine still lets them look over their shoulder when reversing a car at 74. These are the movements of sustained independence, and every single one becomes harder to recover once you lose it. Here's the part that should make you sit up. Studies tracking large populations in places like Okinawa and Nagano found that seniors who performed these types of movement patterns daily had joint mobility scores comparable to people 15 years younger in Western countries, and their fall rates, the thing that statistically marks the beginning of serious decline after 60, were less than half. Less than half. That's not genetics. That's behavior. And behavior you can start today. Now I'm going to walk you through all 5 movements in order of simplicity, and I'm building toward the one that researchers say might be the single most predictive measure of how long you'll live independently. That's number 1. But number 2 is the one that fixes the hidden collapse most people over 60 don't even realize is happening in their hips, and it's the one that consistently surprises people when they feel the difference in just 4 days. So stay with me because each of these has a specific reason it works, a clear protocol you can follow, and a way to progress it as you get stronger. Before we go further, drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from and whether you can currently sit down on the floor and stand back up without using your hands or holding on to anything. Just yes or no. I want to know where you're starting because that answer tells me more about your functional age than the number on your birth certificate. Let's begin with movement number 5. In Japanese, it's often called a version of what translates to floor sitting, but the specific practice we're talking about is lowering yourself to the ground and rising back up using only your legs and core. This is called the sitting rising test in research circles, and it's been studied extensively as a predictor of mortality and independence. The version Japanese seniors practice daily isn't about testing themselves. It's about maintaining the strength and mobility to do it without thinking. And they build it into their day by sitting on floor cushions for tea, for meals, for evening television, instead of always defaulting to chairs and sofas. Here's why this matters for you. Every time you sit down into a chair and stand back up, you're using your quadriceps, your glutes, and your core to control your body against gravity. But chairs are forgiving. They stop your descent. They give you armrests to push off. And over years of chair dependence, your body loses the ability to control a deeper range of motion and to generate force from a low position. The result is that getting off the floor, which used to be automatic, becomes difficult, then something you avoid, then something you can't do. And once you can't get down to the floor safely, a whole category of movement disappears. Playing with grandchildren on the carpet, gardening, retrieving something that rolled under furniture. These aren't luxuries, they're dignity. Research from Brazil followed more than 2,000 adults aged 51 to 80 for several years and scored them on their ability to sit down on the floor and rise back up without support. The scoring was simple. You started with 10 points and lost 1 point for each hand, knee, forearm, or side of the leg you used for support. People who scored 8 or higher, meaning they used minimal support, had a significantly lower risk of death from any cause during the follow-up period compared to those who scored 3 or lower. The gap wasn't small. It was dramatic. This single movement pattern was capturing strength, balance, flexibility, and body awareness all at once. And those who could do it well were far more likely to still be alive and independent years later. Let me tell you about Margaret. She was 67, a retired school librarian from Ontario, and she told me she hadn't sat on the floor in probably a decade. Not because she was in pain, but because she was afraid she wouldn't be able to get back up without help, and that fear had quietly removed an entire movement pattern from her life. We started with a very simple progression. She practiced lowering herself onto a thick cushion placed on the floor beside her sofa, so if she needed to, she could reach out and steady herself on the sofa arm, just lowering and rising, 5 times, once a day. Within 2 weeks, she no longer needed to touch the sofa. Within 4 weeks, she could lower all the way to the floor and come back up using just one hand on her thigh for the final push. By 6 weeks, she did it unassisted, and she told me the shift wasn't just physical. She said she felt capable again, like she'd taken back a piece of herself she didn't realize she'd surrendered. Here's your protocol. If you can already sit and rise without support, do it twice a day just to maintain it. Morning and evening. If you can't do it yet, or it feels risky, start with a progression. Use a sturdy cushion or a low-step stool to reduce the depth. Sit down onto it and stand back up, keeping your feet flat and your weight centered. Do this 5 times in a row, once a day. Every few days, use a thinner cushion or remove some height until you're closer to the floor. The key is control. Lower yourself slowly. Don't drop. When you rise, drive through your heels and squeeze your glutes at the top. If balance is an issue, keep a stable chair nearby that you can touch lightly, but resist the urge to pull yourself up with your arms. Let your legs do the work. That's where the strength comes from. And here's a safety note. If you have a knee replacement or severe arthritis that makes deep knee bending painful, you can modify this by lowering only to a height that feels stable, even if that's just a low ottoman. The point is to challenge the range you have, not to force a range that isn't safe yet. Progress comes from consistency, not from one heroic attempt. Now, let's move to number 4. This one is about balance, and the Japanese have a simple daily habit for it that takes less than 60 seconds. It's standing on one leg while performing a simple task. In Japan, you'll see older adults standing on one leg while waiting for water to boil, while brushing their teeth, while talking on the phone. It's not a formal exercise, it's integrated. And the reason it works is that balance, unlike strength, degrades very quickly when you stop challenging it, and most people over 60 in Western countries almost never stand on one leg intentionally. Here's what's happening in your body. Your vestibular system, which controls balance, gets input from your inner ear, your vision, and sensors in your muscles and joints called proprioceptors. After 60, if you don't regularly challenge your balance, those proprioceptors become less sensitive and your brain becomes less efficient at integrating the signals. The result is slower reaction time when you trip, less stability on uneven ground, and a higher fall risk. And falls are not a minor issue. For people over 65, falls are the leading cause of injury-related death and the most common cause of non-fatal trauma. A single fall can fracture a hip, and studies show that within a year of a hip fracture, up to 30% of older adults experience serious complications or death. So balance isn't a nice-to-have. It's survival. Japanese seniors practice balance every single day without thinking about it because their daily environment demands it. Many homes still have floor seating, which requires lowering and rising, and traditional toilets, though less common now, required a deep squat. But even beyond that, they intentionally incorporate one-legged standing into mundane moments, and research backs up why this works. A study tracking adults over 60 found that people who could not balance on one leg for at least 20 seconds had a higher risk of stroke and cognitive decline. 20 seconds. That's the benchmark. And the good news is that balance improves quickly with practice. Faster than strength. Faster than flexibility. You can see measurable improvement in 1 week. Robert was 71, a former electrician from Arizona. He told me he felt unsteady getting out of the shower and that he'd started gripping the wall when putting on his pants. It bothered him. He didn't feel old, but his balance told a different story. I had him start standing on one leg for 10 seconds on each side twice a day while brushing his teeth. Just 10 seconds. No other changes. After 1 week, he was up to 15 seconds. After 2 weeks, he could do 30 seconds on each leg without wobbling. And he told me the unsteadiness in the shower was gone. That fast. Because balance responds to stimulus, and most people just stop giving their body the signal. Here's your protocol. Once a day, stand on one leg while doing something you already do. Brushing your teeth is perfect because it's timed and you're standing still. Start with 10 seconds on each leg. If you wobble, that's normal. Let yourself wobble. Your body is learning. Don't hold on to anything unless you feel like you're about to fall. Light finger contact on a counter is fine for stability, but don't grip. You want your body to do the work. As you improve, aim for 20 seconds, then 30. Once you can hold 30 seconds comfortably, close your eyes for 5 seconds while standing on one leg. That removes visual input and forces your vestibular system and proprioceptors to work harder. It's much more difficult. You'll feel the difference immediately. And here's an advanced variation you can add once the basic version feels easy. Stand on one leg and slowly move your other leg forward, then to the side, then behind you, like drawing a small circle in the air with your foot. This is called dynamic balance, and it mimics the kind of control you need when stepping over an object or catching yourself mid-stumble. Do 3 slow circles on each leg once a day. This one movement pattern will reduce your fall risk more than any other single intervention you can do at home. Movement number 3 is about your spine. And this is where Japanese daily habits diverge sharply from Western ones. It's called spinal rotation, and it's the movement pattern that keeps your torso mobile so you can look behind you, reach across your body, twist to grab something off a shelf. In Japan, many daily tasks still require rotation. Sitting on the floor and reaching for items. Turning to greet someone. Traditional meal prep that involves low tables and side-to-side motion. In the West, we sit in chairs that support our spines, we look straight ahead at screens, we reach forward but rarely twist. And the thoracic spine, the part of your back between your shoulder blades, becomes stiff. When that happens, your lower back compensates by rotating more than it should, and that's where pain and injury show up. Here's the mechanism. Your spine is made up of 33 vertebrae, and each section has a different job. Your neck is mobile. Your lower back is stable but allows some flexion and extension. Your thoracic spine, the mid-back, is designed for rotation. But if you spend years sitting still, the small muscles between your vertebrae shorten, the fascia tightens, and rotation becomes restricted. So when you try to look over your shoulder while backing up your car, your lower back twists instead. And over time that leads to disc irritation, muscle strain, and the kind of chronic stiffness people assume is just aging. It's not aging, it's disuse. Studies on spinal mobility in aging populations found that people who maintain thoracic rotation into their 70s and 80s report significantly less lower back pain and have better functional independence. They can dress themselves more easily. They can drive more safely. They can respond to their environment without moving their whole body like a wooden board. And the fix is simple. You just have to rotate your spine intentionally every day. Let me tell you about Linda. She was 63, a former accountant from Illinois. She came to me because she couldn't turn her head far enough to check her blind spot when driving, and it scared her. She thought it was her neck, but when I watched her move, her neck was fine. Her thoracic spine was locked. We started a very simple daily rotation exercise. Sitting in a chair, she'd place her right hand on the outside of her left knee and gently pull herself into a twist, looking over her left shoulder. Hold for 5 breaths. Then switch sides. That's it. Twice a day. Within 1 week, she could turn farther. Within 3 weeks, she could check her blind spot without straining. And she told me it wasn't just driving. She could reach into the back seat of her car to grab her purse. She could twist to pull weeds in her garden without her back tightening up. One movement, practiced daily, gave her back a range of motion she thought was gone. Here's your protocol. Sit in a firm chair with your feet flat on the floor. Place your right hand on the outside of your left knee and your left hand on the back of the chair or the armrest. Inhale, sit tall, and as you exhale, gently pull yourself into a twist to the left, turning your head to look over your left shoulder. Don't force it. You should feel a stretch through your mid-back and maybe into your shoulder. Hold for 5 slow breaths, about 20 seconds. Then return to center and switch sides. Right hand on left knee, twist to the left. Then left hand on right knee, twist to the right. Do this twice a day, morning and evening. It takes 90 seconds total. As you get more comfortable, you can deepen the twist slightly by sitting taller on the inhale and rotating a bit farther on the exhale. But the magic isn't in how far you go. It's in doing it every day. Consistency is what reminds your spine that it's meant to move in 3 dimensions, not just forward and back, and here's a variation you can add if you want more. Stand with your feet hip-width apart and your arms extended in front of you at shoulder height. Keeping your hips facing forward, twist your torso to the right, then to the left, letting your arms swing gently. Do 10 twists on each side, moving smoothly, not jerking. This is more dynamic and it adds a bit of momentum, which helps release fascial restrictions. You can do this version while waiting for coffee to brew or during a commercial break. The point is to make spinal rotation a non-negotiable part of your day, the same way Japanese seniors do without even naming it as exercise. Now we're at number 2, and this is the one I mentioned at the start. It's the movement that fixes the hidden collapse happening in your hips, and it's called the deep squat. Not a gym squat with a barbell. A resting squat. In Japan, it's called a full squat, or sometimes linked to traditional postures. And it means lowering your hips all the way down so your glutes are near your heels. Your torso is upright, and your feet are flat on the ground. In many parts of Asia, this is still a common resting position. People squat while waiting for a bus, while chatting with a neighbor, while gardening. In the West, we stop squatting. We sit in chairs. And that decision, multiplied over decades, has collapsed the mobility of an entire joint. Here's what's happening. Your hip joint is a ball and socket, and it's designed for a huge range of motion. Flexion, extension, rotation, abduction, adduction. But if you only move it through the limited range that sitting in a chair requires, the capsule around the joint tightens, the muscles that stabilize it weaken, and you lose access to deep flexion. Deep flexion is what you need to squat down to pick something up, to sit on the floor, to garden, to play with a grandchild. When you can't do that anymore, you start compensating. You bend forward from your lower back instead of hinging at your hips. You kneel on one knee and push off furniture to stand. You avoid the movement entirely. And those compensations lead to back pain, knee pain, and a gradual loss of independence. Research on movement patterns in aging populations found that people who could perform a deep squat with their heels flat on the ground had better hip mobility, stronger glutes, better ankle flexibility, and lower rates of lower back pain compared to those who couldn't. And here's the kicker. The deep squat also improves gut motility and pelvic floor function, because the position naturally massages your internal organs and encourages proper alignment. Traditional cultures understood this instinctively. We forgot it. I worked with a woman named Diane. She was 68, a retired nurse from Michigan, and she told me her hips felt tight all the time. She couldn't sit cross-legged on the floor with her grandkids, and getting down to pull weeds in her garden had become painful. She thought she needed a hip replacement. I told her to wait and let's see what we can recover. We started with a supported squat. She stood facing a sturdy countertop, held on with both hands, and lowered herself into as deep a squat as she could manage, letting her arms take some of her weight. She held it for 10 seconds, then stood back up. Once a day, that's all. After 4 days, she told me her hips felt looser. After 2 weeks, she could squat deeper without holding on as tightly. After 6 weeks, she could do a full deep squat, heels flat, no support, and hold it for 20 seconds. And the hip tightness was gone. Not reduced, gone. She didn't need surgery. She needed to teach her hips to move again. Here's your protocol. If you can already do a deep squat with your heels flat and your torso upright, do it once a day and hold for 30 seconds to 1 minute. Just rest there. Let your hips open. If you can't do that yet, start with a supported version. Stand facing a kitchen counter or a sturdy railing. Hold on with both hands. Place your feet slightly wider than hip width, toes pointing slightly out. Lower yourself down into as deep a squat as you can manage while keeping your heels on the ground. Your knees will track over your toes. That's correct. Let your arms hold some of your weight so you feel stable. Hold for 10 seconds. Stand back up. Do this once a day. Every few days, try lowering a little deeper or holding a bit longer. Your goal is to eventually squat all the way down so your glutes are near your heels and your torso is upright, and to hold that position for 30 seconds without support. It might take weeks. That's fine. Progress is progress. If your heels lift off the ground when you squat, that's an ankle mobility limitation. You can work on that by placing a small rolled towel or a thin book under your heels to elevate them slightly while you squat. Over time, as your ankles open up, you can reduce the height until your heels stay flat naturally. And here's a bonus tip. Once you can hold a deep squat comfortably, start using it as a resting position. Squat down while you're watching your grandkids play. Squat while you're waiting for something in the kitchen. Squat while you're pulling weeds. The more you use it, the more your body remembers it's a natural position, and the easier it becomes. Japanese seniors don't think about squatting as exercise. They think about it as sitting. That mindset shift is part of why it works. Now, we're at number 1. This is the movement that researchers say might be the single most predictive measure of how long you'll live independently, and it's the simplest one on the list. It's called active sitting, and it's the practice of sitting on the floor instead of in a chair for part of your day. Not lying down, not reclining. Sitting upright on the floor, cross-legged or with your legs extended, and engaging your core and your hips to hold yourself there. In Japan, this is still a common daily practice. People sit on floor cushions for meals, for tea, for television, and the act of lowering yourself to the floor, sitting unsupported, and rising back up multiple times a day maintains strength, flexibility, and body awareness in a way that chair sitting never will. Here's the mechanism. When you sit in a chair, the chair holds you. Your core can disengage. Your hip flexors shorten. Your glutes turn off. You can sit for hours without any muscular effort, and your body adapts by becoming weaker. When you sit on the floor, you have to hold yourself upright. Your deep core muscles, the ones that stabilize your spine, are engaged. Your hips are in a more open position, which maintains flexibility. And every time you transition from standing to floor sitting and back, you're doing a functional strength movement that mimics the kind of effort required to recover from a fall or to get up if you trip. Large-scale studies have found that people who regularly sit on the floor and rise without assistance have longer life expectancy and better quality of life in their later years. It's not just correlation. The movement itself is maintaining systems that predict independence, strength, balance, mobility, spatial awareness. And it's free. You don't need equipment. You don't need a gym. You just need a clean patch of floor and the willingness to spend 10 minutes a day sitting on it. Let me tell you about Tom. He was 74, a retired engineer from Texas. He told me he felt stiff all the time and that his back ached if he stood for more than 20 minutes. He spent most of his day in a recliner. I suggested he try sitting on the floor for 10 minutes each evening while he watched the news, using a cushion if he needed it. He thought I was crazy, but he tried it. The first night he said it was uncomfortable and he had to push himself up with his hands after 5 minutes. The second night he made it to 8 minutes. By the end of the first week he was sitting for the full 10 minutes and he noticed his back hurt less. By the end of the first month he could sit cross-legged on the floor with no cushion and rise back up without using his hands. And he told me the stiffness that had been his constant companion for years was almost gone. Not from stretching, not from medication, from sitting on the floor for 10 minutes a day. Here's your protocol. Once a day, sit on the floor for at least 10 minutes. You can do this while watching television, reading, or talking on the phone. If sitting cross-legged is uncomfortable, sit with your legs extended in front of you or in any position that feels stable. Use a cushion under your hips if that helps you sit upright without slouching. The key is to sit tall, engage your core, and avoid leaning against a wall or furniture. You want your muscles to hold you, not the wall. When your 10 minutes are up, practice standing back up. Shift your weight forward, tuck one leg under you, and press through your foot to rise. If you need to use your hands on the floor to push, that's fine for now, but work toward using less hand support over time. The goal is to make the transition smooth and controlled. Do this every single day. It's not optional if you want to maintain independence. This is the movement that keeps you capable. And here's the progression. Once sitting on the floor for 10 minutes feels easy, increase it to 15 or 20 minutes. Or sit on the floor multiple times a day for shorter periods. Sit on the floor to put on your shoes. Sit on the floor to sort mail. Sit on the floor to play a game with your grandkids. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes, and the more your body adapts by staying strong and flexible. Now, let's talk about habit stacking, because knowing what to do is one thing, but actually doing it every day is another. Japanese seniors don't succeed with these movements because they have more discipline. They succeed because the movements are built into the structure of their day. They're not extra, they're integrated. And you can do the same thing. Here's how. Pick one movement and attach it to something you already do every day without fail. Brushing your teeth is perfect. While you brush, stand on one leg. That's movement number 4. You're already standing there for 2 minutes. Just shift your weight. Or pick your morning coffee. While you wait for it to brew, do your seated spinal twist. That's movement number 3. It takes 90 seconds. Or pick your evening routine. Before you sit down to watch television, lower yourself to the floor and do your active sitting. That's movement number 1. The anchor doesn't matter. What matters is that it's automatic, something you do every day, so the new movement gets pulled along with it. Once one movement is locked in, add the next. Within a month, you can have all 5 movements happening daily without thinking about them, because they're no longer tasks on a to-do list. They're just what you do while you're doing something else. That's the secret. Stop treating movement as exercise you have to schedule and start treating it as behavior you attach to life. And here's the safety reminder that applies to all 5 movements. If something causes sharp pain, stop. Dull discomfort or a stretching sensation is normal and expected. Sharp pain is a signal. Listen to it. Modify the movement or reduce the range until it feels challenging but safe. And if you have a specific condition, a joint replacement, severe osteoporosis, a recent injury, check with your doctor before adding these to your routine. But for most people over 60, these movements are not only safe, they're necessary. They're the difference between aging with independence and aging with limitation. Let's talk about progression. Because your body will adapt. What feels hard today will feel easier in 2 weeks, and that's when you need to challenge yourself a bit more. For the sitting rising test, progress by using less support or lowering to a deeper position. For balance, progress by closing your eyes or adding dynamic movement. For spinal rotation, progress by sitting taller and twisting slightly farther. For the deep squat, progress by holding it longer or using less support. For active sitting, progress by sitting for more time or transitioning up and down more frequently. Small progressions every 2 weeks keep your body adapting. That's how you build resilience. And here's the mindset shift that makes all of this work. Stop thinking of your body as something that's breaking down and start thinking of it as something that responds to input. You're not fighting aging. You're giving your body the signals it needs to stay capable. Every time you stand on one leg, you're telling your nervous system that balance matters. Every time you sit on the floor and stand back up, you're telling your muscles that strength matters. Every time you rotate your spine, you're telling your joints that mobility matters, and your body listens. It adapts, it rebuilds. Not overnight, but consistently, if you give it consistent input. Japanese seniors don't do these movements because they're trying to defy aging. They do them because they want to keep living their lives without assistance. They want to garden. They want to cook. They want to sit on the floor with their grandchildren. They want to walk to the market without fear of falling. And the movements aren't magic. They're just honest. They're the movements your body was designed to do, and when you stop doing them, your body assumes you don't need them anymore and reallocates the resources. Use it or lose it isn't a cliche. It's biology. So here's what I want you to understand. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need to be flexible or strong to start. You just need to start. Pick one movement from this list. Just one. Do it today. Do it tomorrow. Do it the day after that. Let it become automatic, then add the next one. Within a month, you'll notice a difference. Within 3 months, other people will notice. Within 6 months, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. And here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud, but I'll say it anyway. After 60, every year you wait to start moving intentionally is a year of capacity you probably won't fully recover. Not because your body can't adapt, but because the gap gets wider and the effort required gets steeper. Starting today means you're working from where you are now. Starting next year means you're working from somewhere weaker. The cost of delay is real. So don't delay. These 5 movements, sitting and rising from the floor, standing on one leg, rotating your spine, squatting deeply, and sitting actively on the floor. They're not the only movements that matter, but they're the ones that Japanese seniors do every day, and they're the ones that research keeps pointing to as predictors of independence and longevity. They're simple, they're accessible, and they work. Now, I want to hear from you. Which one of these 5 movements are you going to start with, and why does it matter to you? Drop a comment and let me know. Are you starting with balance because you felt unsteady? Are you starting with floor sitting because you want to play with your grandkids without needing help to stand up? Are you starting with the deep squat because your hips feel tight and you want that freedom back? Tell me. I read every single comment, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to take their first step. So go ahead. Comment right now. Which movement and why?